Hello guys, welcome to Agave Tales. My name is Ben and today I'm with another Ben, Ben Schroder, founder and creator of Pensador Mezcal.
Founder is the title I normally go for, yeah.
Yeah, thanks so much for being here with us.
It's
a real pleasure. How are you doing today?
good, man. Yeah, it's a beautiful day.
Yeah.
I just skated from my apartment around the corner, so
Great.
feeling good.
Amazing, good start of the day. I'm gonna, before we talk about your career, your background, and obviously Pensador, the way you created that brand and everything, I'm gonna ask you some quick fire questions, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Amazing.
Straight in.
What would be your favorite underrated cocktail?
I draw for a Gibson Martini often. I don't know if that counts as underrated, but
I think it kind of is.
yeah, that's my sort
no
of
one really asked for a Gibson Martini.
Exactly, yeah, off menu, and not one of the pure classics.
Actually, I think the last time I had a Gibson Martini was at the Gibson, so that means a lot, which was a while ago, I guess.
Yeah. I love the savoury note and the. I was always in that last sip where you eat the pickled onion as well. It's just amazing and incredibly Moorish. So it's quite dangerous. You go straight back in for another one.
I guess you can do a nice twist with mezcal, actually.
Yeah. Those flavours work really well. I once actually made a vinegar out of mezcal. So you can make vinegar, cider vinegar, red wine vinegar. You can make vinegar out of any alcohol. And if you take mezcal and dilute it down to sort of 12% alcohol, and then leave that with a cloth over the top of it, it will create vinegar. And it created a mezcal-based vinegar, which was then used in some mezcal cocktails, which actually was fucking delicious. Yeah.
That sounds really nice.
Yeah.
What was the last country you visited?
I was going to say Ibiza, but actually the answer would be Spain, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. Okay, fair enough. What would be the favorite food to pair with mezcal?
So I did a trade show in Glasgow recently, and they wanted me to do something a bit more interactive with the mezcals. They suggested cocktails, but I said instead that I was going to do some food pairings. So I tried to work out what little modifiers or snacks would pair really well with each mezcal. And in the end, we settled on, me and a friend, it was actually a really fun evening. We sat down, we went to M&S and we bought all the snacks, all the nibbles, and we got all the mezcals out and we sat down and we went through trying everything side by side and see what worked best. And what we settled on in the end was, it was quite a mild cheddar, actually, with the espadine. Worked really well. It's the smokiest of the three, so the smoke and the cheese, the sort of creaminess as well came together really well. For the ensemble, we had a sun-dried tomato with it, which just brought out this crazy umami flavour. That was probably the biggest head spinner. And then the especial, the current one, is an ensemble of four agaves, and that one we paired with a green olive, and that again brought out these umami notes. So I think savoury nibbles I prefer to sweet things. The orange is obviously the classic, but I think, olives, cheese, cured meats, that sort of stuff works really well.
With mezcal, I agree, savoury stuff goes really well, and with tequila, maybe a bit more the sweet
yes,
stuff.
Exactly. I remember actually here at Atcha having a Repside tequila with some white chocolate, I think. And that worked really fucking well. Yeah. But with mezcal savoury stuff, I think. We
did pair the espadine actually from Pensador with white chocolate as well. Because we thought the slightly sweet but creamy notes of white chocolate would go well with the mouthfeel of Pensador. So. I'm sure. I mean, obviously it went well. But something about the savouriness, I think, boosts the sweetness in a way, Yeah, exactly. It's the same way when you put a bit of salt in a cocktail, it brings the sweet flavour.
Exactly.
Oh, cool. London or Mexico?
It's got to be both, really. I can't
a Mexican bar in London.
Yeah, I mean,
or a pub in Mexico.
I've never lived in Mexico, but I spend a few months there every year, and I love it there. But I also think London's the most exciting city in the world, and my friends live here, and
Yeah, fair enough.
I can't choose. It's got to be both.
Fair enough.
And both is the dream.
Fair. If you had to have an animal on top of your bar spoon, what would it be?
Animal on top of my bar spoon, just fox came to my head.
Oh, nice.
First of all, I'm not really sure why, but I think it would look good.
That's the purpose of that question. You kind of somehow you find your favorite animal or something.
Yeah, exactly. Now I know.
Great. So now we're gonna talk a little bit before talking about Pensador itself. Maybe we're gonna talk about what were you doing before.
So before Pensador, I was a teacher. I was a tutor. So I was teaching kids after school, mostly English and maths, between the ages of 11 and 16. And I was living in my parents' house. I'd finished university. I'd moved back in with my parents, and I was tutoring. So I was doing a couple of hours of that a day. It's pretty well paid for the amount of time that you do. So I had quite a lot of spare time where I didn't really need more income, and I was trying to work out what it was that I wanted to do long term, because I wasn't sure if I wanted to actually be a teacher. And that's when I went to Mexico and
in 2015
started drinking a lot of mezcal. Yeah.
Was it the first time you tried mezcal?
It was, yeah. That first trip to Mexico, I'd never really heard of mezcal before that. I used to drink, I drank quite a lot of whiskey. I liked rums, but I'd never heard of mezcal. I wasn't even that into tequila either. And I went out there, and I really hadn't done my homework. Like, I thought that people in Mexico I thought English would be widely spoken. I knew Spanish was the national language, but I thought English would be widely spoken because of the close relationship with the United States. But actually, when we arrived in Mexico City and we were in the Centro Historico, very few people spoke English. So me and my girlfriend, we learned one phrase that we thought would carry us through, which was "que recomienda," meaning "what would you recommend?" So we could just go into any restaurant or bar and say "que recomienda," and they would say something back that we didn't understand, and we'd say "sí, por favor." And we did that in a bar on our first night there, and he said mezcal, and I was like, don't know what that is, but sure, let's get two of them. And he pulled out this unmarked, dusty bottle of clear liquid and poured it into small cups and gave it to me. And I was like, what the fuck is that?
Was it a brand or was it just a...
It was unbranded. It was a house mezcal. Yeah. And I had a sip of it. It's just really monumental, life-changing moment, I tried it and felt this warmth going down my chest and these crazy flavors. And I was like, this stuff is sick. And it wasn't I decided there and then I was going to start a mezcal brand, but that was where I first got interested in mezcal, and then that whole trip was a lot of it was about finding and drinking mezcal.
You tried it, okay.
Yeah.
It's funny, I recently read the book from Ron Cooper, and he described the first time he tried mezcal as well. It's fairly similar. It's quite funny.
Yeah. What's it called? Finding
Mezcal. Yeah. Great book, actually. Highly recommended.
A little bit of a ostentatious title.
Yeah.
Fair play to Ron Cooper. He did literally.
No, yeah.
He did kind of create the game, but there's something a little bit colonial about that.
Yeah.
It's like when we discovered Victoria Falls. You know what I mean?
Even when you read the book, it's a little bit like that.
Yeah.
In kind of a good way.
He's a legend, to be fair, and a maverick. So fair play.
I read it as stories more than actual real. I mean, it's a real story, but I very much read it as almost like a tale.
Yeah.
Which I think if you take it that way, you kind of make everything makes more sense.
Yeah. No, I enjoyed it.
And so you came back to London, and I guess the idea of mezcal just stayed in your mind for a while.
Yeah, so I came back to London, and I wanted to drink more mezcal, and I was like, it's London, it's a specialist fucking bar for everything. There's got to be some mezcal bars around. So I went to all the places that were kind of pushing mezcal at that time, and I was a bit disappointed by the range of mezcal that I found available then. It was there were a handful of brands. They were basically all Espadín. They were all from the same part of Oaxaca, and there was nothing like the variety that I'd experienced when I was in Mexico. Having said that, there were a couple of bars that were really important at that time. I went to El Nivel, which was a bar run by Jesse from Ocho, and they had a pretty good selection, a lot of stuff that they brought back personally from Mexico. And there was a bartender at the time called Massey, and he was just really I went in and I was obviously really interested in mezcal and wanted to chat about it, and he was really happy to just he just poured me little samples of loads of different bottles, and that was quite eye-opening. I guess what that sort of taught me was how much interest there was in mezcal in the industry at the time, and how there were bartenders like Massey who were really passionate about it, and it felt like maybe we were on some sort of tipping point of more interest in the public as well, in the country.
Okay, and then so you kind of decided like, oh, this is great, like I want to do my own.
Basically, I decided that me and a mate, I brought quite a lot of mezcal back with me, and I got him over one night, and we drank his mezcal, and we were like, we're going to start a mezcal brand. Let's do it. So we pretty much booked our flights to Oaxaca like there and then for later that summer. So this was like a year later after the initial trip. And the next morning when I woke up and I was like a bit bleary, I was like, wait, am I actually signing a mezcal brand? Is that actually going to happen? Should I cancel those flights? And I was like, no, let's go on the trip. Let's go out there. I want to go back to Mexico anyway. We'll focus on Oaxaca. We'll drive around. We'll try and find producers. It'll be a lot of fun. Like, you know, if I don't find anything. Like, what's the worst thing? I just had a great time in Oaxaca, you know? So, and that's kind of like a lot of the process of setting up the brand was that kind of thinking. Like, I'll just take it to the next step. I won't commit too much, like time or money, and then I'll see how I'm feeling at that stage. So it's like a process of small steps rather than like jumping straight in at any point.
Yeah, and I guess the process of creating a brand was like much different than when you just had the idea. Like, I guess you didn't imagine like all the work it was behind it.
Oh no, totally. I didn't know anything about it. I wasn't in the drinks industry. I didn't really know how like even just like getting any product to market, like how that works. And I was thinking about the amount of money that I spent on mezcal when I was in Oaxaca, and then I was thinking about what I could sell it for in a shop in London, and I was like, cool, I can make loads of money.
Yeah.
But then you realise you learn about tax, you learn about
Yeah.
the steps involved, the middlemen, you know, all the rest of it, and making money becomes more and more difficult, more competitive. But again, I guess if I'd known how much work it was going to be and how tight the margins were going to be from the beginning, I probably wouldn't have started. But taking it step by step, I got more and more invested in the idea and more obsessed with mezcal as I went along. So I was always happy to take the next step. And I'm glad that I did. But yeah, with the knowledge that I have now, I would have been probably overwhelmed by the idea at the beginning.
What was the least expected like expenses or thing that happened to you while you're creating the mezcal? Because I guess from the beginning you're kind of like, okay, I need to find a producer, I need to produce it, I need to import it, blah, 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 blah. But then for sure, while you're doing it, there's like some expenses. You're like, what?
Yeah, I mean, it's the shipping and the licensing is like the slowest, like most painful, most boring bit. And to this day, every shipment throws up some new sort of disaster and makes me miserable.
The last one was pretty funny in a way. I mean,
well, I'm actually having
a cool story.
Yeah, that one at least had a cool. I'm having a new disaster this time, and it's not even a cool story. It's like a really frustrating story.
Yeah, fair.
I'm actually not even going to go into it because it's boring. But like, it's just like it's been a painful process, the shipments, and that I think is where I lose the most profit and will to live.
Well, it's really tricky, I guess, to import everything from Mexico.
Yeah. I think a lot of brands set up with a distributor or an importer, and that means that you size up a lot of that stuff. You don't have to get registered with HMRC, which takes a long time, and then also you don't have to deal with the shipments. But I decided that I was going to do it all myself.
You're still fully independent?
Yeah, fully independent, which, you know, I'm proud of, and I like being sort of unaccountable, but it is also a headache. Yeah,
fair enough. So let's go back to Mexico. So you went there with some friends and you decided to find a producer. How did you do that? Did you just go there and so like knock on people's door and say, hey, can I try your mezcal? Can I just get your mezcal? Like,
pretty much, yeah. So I didn't speak Spanish at the time, so I brought my friend. Actually, the friend who I drank the mezcal with, like, he didn't make it in the end, but I substituted him with another friend who could speak Spanish, which was a good move. We basically went to Oaxaca, we went to some mezcal bars and we asked them where they were getting their mezcal from, and then we went to some of those towns and then we asked people in those towns who was their favorite mezcal producer, and it was just kind of like that. It was like a combination of asking for recommendations from people we met and knocking on doors. You go to a pueblo, you go to a village, and you look for signs of mezcal production, and normally you can kind of spot if it's a palenque, a distillery from the outside. Maybe there'll be some agave piñas, some shaved agave piñas ready to be roasted, or maybe there'll be some bagasso, the fibers from the process out on the street or something like that. So they're little markers, maybe it's like some smoke coming out, you know. Yeah. And then we knock on doors, and everyone was very receptive to that. I think because for the most part, until quite recently, most mezcaleros, a lot of their trade was local people, or people from neighboring villages just coming and knocking on doors and filling up bottles with mezcal. So they were very happy to welcome us in, give us tasters on the basis that we just buy a litre or two when we leave. So that's how we did it. And it was just sort of process of elimination, going to as many different villages as possible and trying as many mezcal as possible. And we were very idealistic at that time. I wasn't thinking much about commercial constraints or who would be an easier person to work with or what would be a more profitable producer. I was really just looking for the best mezcal that I could find, which again isn't how I would do it now, but I am glad that that's how I did it, because though it was a slow process and it's been, because the producer I started working with wasn't working with any other brands, wasn't really set up for doing commercial quantities. So it was a process of us both learning as we went and building slowly. But I wouldn't have been able to work with someone like that if I'd gone in looking for someone who had a lot of capacity and like a sort of commercial setup straight away. So again, I'm glad that I did it the slow way.
So that was a very small producer.
Yes, exactly. So
was it the best mezcal you tried there? Like
it was the best mezcal that I tried. Yeah, there were like a couple of contenders, but it was definitely the one which suited my palate the most. I basically just really like the mezcals from Michoacán in the south of Oaxaca. I like their sort of brightness and their like fruity flavors and the sort of like clean, balanced profiles. I was toying with the mezcal from Sol de Vega, which was much more, it was clay pot distilled, and it was like, they were like earthy and smoky and unruly. And I did like it, but in the end, I felt like it wasn't something I wanted to drink all the time. Whereas the mezcals from Michoacán, I think suit, more all occasions. More occasions, all occasions.
Yeah. Yeah, the terroir is so important with mezcal, especially in Oaxaca. People keep forgetting that. I mean, obviously most of mezcal comes from Oaxaca, but then within Oaxaca you got like 4 or 5 different sort of.
So this is something I talk about a lot. Oaxaca is big. It's like nearly the same size as like England in terms of landmass.
Wow.
It's super mountainous. It's the meeting point of 4 different mountain ranges. It's also kind of the meeting point of 2 seas. It's like the skinniest bit of Mexico. So you got the influence of the Atlantic and the Pacific. It's really biologically diverse. There are more species of plants in Oaxaca than in the whole of Europe combined.
Wow.
So it's super diverse. There's loads of different microclimates. So you get really diverse terroir, big variety of different agave varietals, and the way that they taste in each region is different. And then also there are some main roads, but if you went 30 years ago, there are lots of mountain villages that are connected by like a donkey track to like the nearest actual town that has a road. So they're very isolated, and through that you also get isolated styles of production. These towns weren't really like communicating that much about how they make a mezcal, so you get different techniques, styles, understandings of what a good mezcal is. And there was no central market as well, so for that you get those two features, the terroir and the local techniques, which creates very distinctive styles. And for me, the 2 things that are going to give you a good idea what a mezcal tastes like are the agave varietal and then which region it comes from Oaxaca. And I think I say there are like 7 main production regions. It's like a little bit of like a, hard to draw lines, but more or less 7 production regions in Oaxaca.
And how many mezcal did you try before finding this one?
I think I actually had 2 trips in the end. because the first one I probably bought like about 40 samples, and then I went back again a few months later and bought another, I don't know, 30 samples. So maybe I had like 70 samples to choose from, but like I must have tasted like 200-300 mezcals, you know.
Oh.
It's a hard job, but got to be done.
And then comes then your very first small batch with a really small producer.
Atenogenes.
Yes. I love your website. Like, there's like so much like geeky info about all your batches. Like, I mean, I love the way...
I'm glad someone looks at it. I put quite a lot of time into it, and I appreciate that very few people...
I read it all, and it's like...
But...
And you kind of like surprise yourself, like being really interested by small stuff. Like, for example, your first batch, you've done a fermentation of a winter, like cold months, like the coldest months of Mexico. So it actually took longer than expected.
Yeah.
And I like the way you just specify that on your website, because I don't know.
That was a very significant difference with the first batch. That cold, it was over a cold winter, very long fermentation, and you get very different notes in the mezcal that comes out of that process. So the first batch was winter. The next two batches were produced in the warmer months, and the first batch was more kind of citrusy and like lighter and a bit more mineral, and then the next two batches were more sweet and earthy and kind of richer. And it's all about fermentation, about how long it took, about the types of microbes and yeasts that were resident in the...
it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Well, you get that in the wine industry as well, like,
right.
You know, yeah, no, of course. And did you decide for the blend? Like, it's not common to do a blend straight away.
Right, yeah.
Or is it just really common from this part of Oaxaca?
So blends, ensembles are very common in Michoacán. It's quite normal for producers to have blends of 2, 3, even 5 or 6 different agaves, which you don't see so much in other parts of Oaxaca. This particular ensemble, this Espadín Madrecuiche ensemble, wasn't one that Atenogenes was making before, but I really liked his Madrecuiche, I really liked his Espadín. I thought they would make a really good ensemble. So we worked on a few different levels, a few different quantities, and ended up selling on this, which is 70% Espadín, 30% Madrecuiche. The Madrecuiche is like a bigger flavor, so the flavors felt more balanced at that level. And yeah, it was...
It's funny how your first few batches, like, it's always a blend of Espadín and Madrecuiche, but the percentage of Espadín kind of like varies all the time. And I like the way it kind of like, it goes down a little bit and then it goes back up.
Yeah, you know, it's a little bit just they harvest the plants that are ripe, and it's not going to be an exact science, but that's part of the beauty of mezcal, and there's batch variation, and each batch is slightly different, and that's exciting. So yeah, if I ever find, I have a couple of cases left over, there's early batches, and it's really interesting trying them again now.
Like in a good way, like is it like just
I feel like actually the batches have got they've got slightly bigger over time. They're still really small, but like, you know, the first batch was 400. The first 3 batches were like sort of 300-400 liters, and then now they're doing batches which are more like 1,000 liters, and that means there tends to be a little bit of liquid which is fermented in winter and a little bit of fermented in summer. So they still taste different, but they taste more similar. Whereas those early ones, where it was like a winter batch and then a summer batch, tasted like more distinctly different, which so it's nice to revisit that.
That's cool. That's interesting. And then once you find the producer and everything, and I guess you agreed that like on production scale and everything. And how did you decide on, you know, the branding, the name, and to bring back to London? So
the name I had come up with before I met Atenogenes, Pensador. It was an idea to find a word which encouraged people to sip their mezcal and think a bit more about all of the complexities of the production process, the heritage, the environmental elements. So that was where the idea came from. Pensador, meaning thinker, just basically think about your drinks. And don't just slam it and don't rush to make a cocktail with it, but like actually sip it and think about it. And I like the sound of the word as well. Pensador like had a nice sort of like lyricism to it. It was easy to read in English as well. It didn't have any
fair enough.
double L's or J's in it.
Which is not always the case actually.
Accents. Yeah, exactly. Like some of them are a little more tricky. And so I was pretty set on that as a name already. And then I met Aston Ochanes, and we made the first batch, the Ensemble, and we sort of agreed to work together. That was all signed off. And then later, when I was back in England, actually, I was looking for the Palenque on Google Maps. And I saw that it was on a road called La Calle Pensamientos. Because, when you're there, there's no road signs or anything like that. It's just like a dirt road. It's a paved road, actually, but like there's no road signs. We weren't like looking at a map. We were just sort of driving around and finding what we found. So then when I saw this name, La Calle Pensamientos, which means the road of thoughts, it was this like amazing, like meant to be moment. It was like the universe like saying like, you're on the right track. You're doing the right thing.
It was meant to be that way.
Exactly. Like the Pensador brand has like found La Calle Pensamientos and the producer. So that was a really good moment, which helped power me through those months of mostly wrestling with regulation and getting packaging and boring stuff sorted. So that in that way it became El Camino del Pensador, meaning the path of the thinker or the way of the thinker, because it's on La Calle Pensamientos.
Which make it even more like poetic.
Yeah.
I love it. I actually didn't know about that story. That's really nice. And how was it once you came with the product, with the liquid in UK? Like, was it really hard to just kind of start a company and then, because obviously you've done pretty much everything by yourself, I guess, or maybe with some friends, but did you go to bars and say, try my mezcal?
Yeah.
Probably most of people say, what's mezcal?
Yeah, I didn't really know what I was doing. My game plan was essentially to go to the top end bars and shops and try and get them to stock it and hope that there would be like a trickle down effect that people would see mezcal in the important bars, Pensador in the important bars, and then want to get it in their bars. And fortunately to get me going, I had a friend who was working in marketing at the Mondrian, which is where what was then Dandelion bar was, which at that time it had just won Tales of the Cocktails. It had won
it was best
50 best. It was like it was the best bar, like objectively the best bar in the world at the time.
Is that the first bar that Pensador?
Right.
Wow.
So my friend introduced me to Alex Lawrence, who was the bar manager at the time, and he tasted it and he was like, I love it. He was like, I was fully expecting to not like it because your story is like pretty ropey, but it's great. So he got it in, and also at that point I was like, if you had a mezcal brand, how would you sell it? I was like, I wasn't going in there like being a salesman. I was going in there being like, I don't know what I'm doing. You tell me how to sell it, So I got some good advice from him, and that was quite crucial. I think at that stage was just being really open about how little I knew, asking people to give me advice and
makes
taking
it more
advice.
authentic, I guess.
I think people warm to that as well. That was something like be humble was a big bit of advice straight away, because I think bartenders get kind of sick of ambassadors coming in who like maybe have like already had a few cocktails as well and just start like telling them why their spirit is the best or whatever without having a conversation about it,
Yeah, because I guess it was a bit more like, hey, try my mezcal rather than buy my mezcal.
Yeah.
A bit more like a authentic way, like a bit more natural. And
Yeah. I was just like, I have this stuff, I think it tastes great, like, what do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't come with like a sort of pitch and like a marketing scheme, and like I didn't know about retros, I didn't know about listing fees, and like it was just like this is a cool liquid, do you want to try it?
Because I guess it's quite hard to have like an independent mezcal brand in UK, especially a few years ago.
Yeah. And again, it's not how I would really recommend doing it now. I would probably tell people to try and work with a distributor from the get-go. But again, I created some relationships early on that are still to this day useful, and I think the authenticity and the approach fit was important to that.
I guess if you have a good product and something quite unique, especially like a few years ago, I mean, there's no reason why it won't work, I guess.
Yeah, I think it was a bit easier back then as well. I think the market was a little bit less constrained than it is now, so people were more willing to get more expensive premium craft spirits on board, and now there's a lot more people looking for a deal, basically.
10% of each bottle is donated to a charity back in Mexico, right? Sacred. Could you maybe tell us a little bit about that?
What it says in the bottle is 10% of proceeds from each bottle sold. What that means in reality is 10% of gross profits, not net profits, because that would be very little money indeed. But gross profits, I donate via Sacred. So Sacred is a charitable organization based in the United States that work throughout Mexico with communities where small batch, traditionally made agave spirits are being made. And my agreement with Sacred is all the money that I donate to Sacred is spent on issues which are affecting the communities in Michoacán where my mezcals are sourced from. So we call these community projects, and what we do is we basically go to my producers and ask them what issues are affecting them with a skew towards environmental problems. And for the first of these community projects, we went to Jose Garcia. Jose is Atano Hernandez's son, and he's kind of like my guy on the ground. He kind of like helps, because I work with a few different producers and he helps.
You made a batch with him, no?
Yes, I don't have it here. There's a new, the current batch of Especial is made by Jose, but Jose is also involved in every batch of Ensemble. Yeah, he manages everything on the ground. But I went to him and said, what problems have you got? And he points to the issue of water security. Like a lot of places in the world, Michoacán is getting drier. There's been less rainfall. It's hotter. They've noticed that the wells they have are drying up. The streams. The streams are always dry for the dry part of the year, but you used to have water running in the rainy season. But now it's dry year round. So they've actually had to resort to getting deliveries of water by truck in order to make mezcal, but also just for domestic purposes. So he wanted to address this, and that was a criteria that really worked with the whole idea of the pledge. So Sacred helped to organise some managers of the project and helped to get some hydrologists and local experts to come down to San Isidro, to the village where Jose lives, and they analysed the problem and made a plan to help resolve it. So in the short term, they dug a new well just because they needed more water like there and then to stop bringing these trucks. And then they also looked at ways to help improve water retention. So when it does rain, the water sinks down, doesn't just like run off the surface. So they looked at changing some agriculture practices, planting more trees, as well as creating these sort of small dams, which you put in the like rivets on the hillside and also in some of the streams to help absorb more water. So yeah, just what we can to help resolve that issue. So that was the first project. We're still funding that, and we'll probably look at doing a new project from next year, 2025, I think.
Oh, great. Amazing. And all that in the same part of Oaxaca where all the mezcals are from.
Exactly. So it will be working in the communities where the mezcal is made. So right. San Isidro is where the ensamble comes from. Bramaderos is where the espadín comes from, and then the especial actually moves around. So there's a lot of communities in that area that we could potentially work with.
How do you decide on which especial you're gonna do? Do you just like go there and then try some more mezcals and then just get involved with more producers and?
Pretty much. I mean, I pretty much started the especial expression because whenever I was in Michoacán, I would drive around and meet new producers and try mezcals. And sometimes I would try some like really amazing mezcals. And I wanted to be able to share them, represent them, in the UK. A lot of those producers aren't certified to make mezcal because they're like kind of living a bit off grid. They grow their own food, they make their own mezcal. They're not really registered with the government in any way really, so they don't want to go through the process of having to register themselves to make certified mezcal. So I decided to not certify that bottle, so I could literally put any good liquid in it. And then I have a bit of a bodega building up in Oaxaca of these batches that I bought over the years. I probably need to stop buying so many batches because I'm buying them a lot quicker than I'm selling them. But yeah, as a rule, it's just if I try something that really blows my mind, that's when I buy it.
And is that the plan in the future as well, to just keep doing like different batches and like small batches?
Yeah, I've got quite a few lined up. And it's a combination of selling them exclusively. So I sold 2 batches now exclusively to Berry Bros, which has been a really nice process. And then so I've got a few other bars and shops who are interested in the idea of having an exclusive Pensador batch, and then ones that are just publicly available. So the first one was the Tepestate. The current one is an ensemble of Cucheria, Tepestate, Biquiche, and Tobala. And the next one, haven't fully decided yet. It's quite likely the next one will be a pure Tobala, but...
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I do love Tobala.
Yeah, that's a good one, to be fair.
Are you going to keep the Espadin as base as well? Or
Espadin and Ensemble will always be the same.
Right.
Yeah.
But then it's pretty cool that you like still changing producers, even though you do like 100% Espadin, you have a couple of different producers to do.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, keep the Espadin and Ensemble pretty consistent, and then have the flexibility to work with any producer on the black label.
Right.
Especial.
That's really cool. What's the best and the worst of having a mezcal brand?
There's a lot of good things. I think the things that I like the most are being in Oaxaca and seeing the really significant difference Pensador's having for the people who make it. My producers, it's a really life-changing amount of money for them. So it's been great to see them grow and be able to afford more, because it's a very poor part of the world. Oaxaca is the poorest state in Mexico, and Michoacán is one of the poorest areas of Oaxaca. So it's a very impoverished part of the world. So this is a big deal, and it's great to see them be able to overcome some of the problems that they had before.
Do you see any changes about that with the fact that mezcal is the fastest category, spirit category? For the last maybe like 5 years, like it's been like massive increase. Like,
yeah.
Do you see then Oaxaca like sort of getting better, if it makes sense?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. There's more money coming into the state, both through mezcal and also through tourism. I guess the changes are happening everywhere in the last 10 years or so. You can see the change everywhere. I think the tourism in particular, the money is quite centralized. It needs to be a bit more distributed. But yeah, it is definitely good for the state. Where was it? So being in Mexico, seeing the impact it's having on people's lives who I work with is one amazing thing. In London, spending time in these amazing bars and restaurants and meeting people working hospitality in London, there are so many good people with great ideas, and it really makes living in London make a lot of sense. I have some friends who get annoyed about London because they say that it's so expensive and they always end up just doing the same thing anyway. Whereas if you actually go out and you go to the restaurants, you go to the bars, you see the city, it's an incredible, exciting place. So I love that. And then the other thing is just fucking drinking it, basically. like throughout because like there's so much hard stuff. There's so much stuff that makes you want to smash your head against the wall. And whenever that happens, not whenever it happens, but if you're feeling down about it and you have a sip and it just tastes fucking amazing, that is such a reassuring thing that you're doing the right thing. So
right,
yeah, being able to drink your job is great.
Okay, so Ben, before ending that podcast, I'm going to ask you a recommendation. So it can be agave related, but it can be also just a bar you've been recently, a restaurant, a book, a movie, anything really. It's your time.
Gonna give you a few things.
Yeah, of course, as many as you want.
You know, loads of great agave bars in London at the moment. Obviously, Atcha is one of my all-time favourites. Cole is incredible. The Mescaleria in Cole, what everything Mateus is doing down there is phenomenal. I love Donya. I'm a friend of Thea who's on the team running it, and we throw parties there a couple times a year, which are always really fun. And then the boys down in 1910 in Balham as well. Like, I just love the team there. Like, everyone's such good.
It's a great bar actually.
Exactly.
It's quite underrated. None of the people
right
mention 1910. Yeah. It's maybe because I live like quite nearby, but yeah, I do like 1910.
I just think the energy in there is like so
it's
nice.
Really,
you know, I think that's something I've always looked out for. Is like, obviously good drinks is key, but like, the thing that makes me really want to go back to bars is the good people behind the bar. Yeah, exactly. And they've got a great team down there.
Great food as well.
And tasty food, exactly. Couple of brands, couple of the mezcal brands. Kikiriki, a lot of respect for Kikiriki and Melanie. I think like as value goes, it's like the best priced, actually like traditionally made, like authentic mezcal in the market. Dangerous Dawn, I love. You should try their Mandarin.
Mandarin's nice. I really like the coffee one.
Yeah, the coffee one's good. The Mandarin one for me is my favourite at the moment. I really like it. If you haven't tried that, give that a go. And then Singizano is just,
of course,
incredible. All of it. John runs a subscription service as well called Mass, where you get 2 little bottles of mezcal every other month, and it comes with loads of information and stories about how John sources mezcals, and just they're all mind blowing. And what he's doing is the closest thing that you can experience to actually going out and traveling around the rural parts of Mexico and just trying agave spirits as you go. So
it's really small batches as well.
It's tiny batches.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I mean, like Pensador is hard to make work financially, and I have tried to tread a path between making money and authenticity, like leaning more towards authenticity, but like, you know, I'm trying to do something which can also, you know, pay for my life. John has just gone like 100% authentic or nothing, like not really, hardly any considerations for like, you know, how to make his own life at all easy, you know. So I really respect that. So yeah, big up Singizano.
Okay, well Ben, thank you so much for being with us. That was super interesting. Thank you for your time, and I'm sure we'll see you in a few bars in London during the year, and maybe in Mexico.
Nice one, man. Pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for having me. And yeah, I'll see you here soon.
Pleasure. Thank you. Salud.
Salud.